Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Julie Brams, who's here to share with us her Nautilus award-winning book, The Nature-Embedded Mind: How the Way We Think Can Heal Our Planet and Ourselves. What if the key to improving our mental health, reducing anxiety, and creating a healthier future isn't found within ourselves alone, but in reconnecting with the natural world that we've forgotten that we're a part of? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Julie Brams is an earth-centered psychotherapist, LMFT certified force therapy guide, meditation practitioner, teacher, and the author of The Nature-Embedded Mind. Her psychotherapy practice integrates traditional therapy, earth-centered practices, meditation, and the latest advances in the field of neuroscience. So welcome to the show, Julie Brams.
Thank you, Marianne. It's so nice to be with you.
Well, my goodness, what an honor it is to be here with you and to talk about your Nautilus award-winning book. I mean, congratulations. What an accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been saying it was the one award that I was really caring about because I really appreciate Nautilus's emphasis. And so it felt very good to be acknowledged in this way.
So what inspired you to write The Nature-Embedded Mind?
Yeah, I mean, many things, but most importantly, I'm a mental health professional. I've been a clinical psychotherapist for about 34 years. And, I really always had a curiosity about human consciousness and human potential. And of course, kind of looking at what makes people suffer and also what, more importantly, relieves suffering. I also am a person like many who have always had a deep love of the natural world and our earth and, wanting to, do a good job of being a human here while I am. And so throughout my career, I think these things sort of wove together at a certain point where I was really looking deeply at these questions of sustainability and what we're facing now with climate crisis and how it's affecting people so deeply, younger and younger. And it just sort of like dawned on me in this very particular way that there's a foundational problem in Western civilization, not all cultures, but Western civilization. There's this foundational problem in our framework that we understand intellectually, but we don't really live differently. And once I saw that, this premise being that humans are separate and oftentimes seen as superior to the rest of nature, once I really looked deeply into that and saw, one, that that's completely false, that's a very man-made idea. This is not reality. And looking at the kind of suffering it causes for people to have to operate in a way that is, again, counter to reality, counter to one's own body wisdom. It felt to me like I have to write this book. I need to do my best to illuminate this for people, and most importantly, for my colleagues, for my mental health profession to look at this as a serious mental health issue, not necessarily looking at it as a pathology, but looking at it as something that is correctable and I believe is very important for us now at this point in time to correct that.
So, when we talk about the nature embedded mind, what does that mean?
I chose those words very intentionally. One, I wanted to bring in this idea of nature so that it does start to give one a sense of what we're looking at is nature, but not only nature as in plants and animals and everything that's out there, but human nature, our natural mind. So nature was a way of aiming our thinking back into, again, what I'm saying is reality, that we are nature, living with the rest of nature, co-creating the environment, co-creating the planet. And the embedded part, I wanted to use that word to highlight that this is not just an intellectual idea. This is not something that's just another, thought to have. It's not a philosophy. It's actually embedded, embodied that our bodies are nature. Our bodies are embedded in the rest of nature. We are embedded in the environment. The book explains more of what I mean by that, but that our mind needs also to be embedded in the rest of nature, coming back into right relationship, which again, I'm just only speaking about Western civilization because we see our indigenous contemporaries and our indigenous ancestors and how those cultures maintained their embeddedness and they operate in the world very differently.
Yeah, they're so in tune with the planet and animals and nature. It's a part that we seem to have forgotten.
Right, and I would say it is true in certain way that we have forgotten, but it's also something that we're conditioned to do. So in our culture, in our mindset, from birth on, we are training ourselves or conditioning ourselves out of the kind of belonging and kinship and relationship that other cultures, indigenous cultures, don't train their children or themselves away. So again, I want to highlight that because it's something that we're all born with. It's an innate, it's our birthright to be in connection with the rest of nature in this, again, I'm going to use the word kinship, friendship, familial way. That's how we're born. And then through many ways, including our language, we begin to train each other and ourselves out of this, I'm going to use the word intimate connection. We begin to think and speak as if we're separate from. And then we also, part of the Western problem is once we imagine ourselves as separated from the rest of nature, then there's also a ranking system that is also completely artificial, where human beings are then ranked at the top, superior to, with everything else falling below. It's also problematic that we then are teaching each other to objectify the rest of nature. And then because we objectify it, we are able to do whatever we want, is sort of like the way the thought process goes. And we can see where this thinking has led us, where we are extracting and taking things and without thought about, again, actually the system that we're part of, as Earth, as sort of one organism, you know, we are going to suffer when we abuse or use the rest of nature as if it's not going to affect us. It's again, once you see this, it's pretty hard to unsee. And that's, I think, what I really hope is for people to feel it in their heart and then again, I've found this way. It's not a way that I developed, but found a way to pretty effortlessly begin to help people reroute their mind. That's a word that I'm sort of using, reconnect their mind back into reality. And, what you see is your body downregulates. So a lot of the stuff that we're suffering with as a mental health professional, I can say, a lot of the stuff that we're suffering with is coming from this disconnect from reality.
Well, and to kind of dovetail with that, as a psychotherapist, what first led you to explore this relationship between mental health and our deep connection with nature, or in many ways right now, like disconnection?
Yeah, I think it was a kind of a pretty seamless outgrowth of, again, my particular curiosities, again, about consciousness and love of the earth. But in my profession, it has become pretty standard now. We understand that mindfulness meditation, we call it a transdiagnostic treatment, not to get too clinical, but what that means is that the practice of mindfulness being embodied, in your senses, present moment, moment to moment, non-judgmental, is a way of decreasing an awful lot of suffering that does come from our cognition, our beliefs, the way we think. Um, and so, as that has become standard in my field, it was an easy leap to kind of uh, recognize once you're in the present moment and you're in your senses, it's easy to understand that our environment is incredibly important to us. And then there is a branch in my field. It's called eco psychology. There's a lot written about it. I encourage anybody to go browse that topic. And so there's a lot of studies and work and clinical experience around, again, this relationship. How do humans fare when they're either disconnected from the rest of nature or connected to nature? Um, Again, I felt like it was time for a rebrand, so to speak. Um, when I have said eco psychology to people, they think immediately about recycling. And yeah, that's maybe an offshoot, but I started to call it earth centered. And that seemed to pique people's curiosity in a different way. And again, going back to the idea of mindfulness, and again, this rerouting, curiosity, that attitude of curiosity is a really important way to stay, okay, I'm going to say to stay well. When we're off in the past or the future, or, something like that, that's where, as human beings, we run into trouble. Yeah, I think that was the pathway. The work that, the people that I'm standing on the shoulders of many incredible maverick people that really took this to heart. Again, in recognizing the destructions that humans cause to their own environment, which is very odd. We are a species that destroys our own habitat. That's not normal.
Yeah, it definitely is not. I love how in your book you really draw from, you talk about psychology, mindfulness, eco psychology, ecotherapy, and force therapy. So, how do these disciplines complement one another in supporting emotional well being?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece that I want to distinguish is this, what you're talking about, the forest therapy or nature therapy, or it originated in Japan, the name being Shinyin Yoku, which means bathing in the atmosphere of the forest. So again, these are things that tons of scientific research to back this up. People are welcome to look for it. But this idea of actually letting the way that I was trained is actually letting the land itself be the therapist. So this is where, as a clinician, and I encourage all of my colleagues to understand and learn how to become an ally to the rest of nature as the therapist, as the healer, as the teacher, and that what our role in that case would be is to set up circumstances, we call them invitations, set up circumstances that allows human beings to come back to a connection with an other than human being, maybe many, maybe, ones that they feel particularly fond of, and letting that relationship heal the human being. So, it takes the form of connecting again with our senses, coming into our body as nature, sensory beings, connecting with an other than human, just with a simple question, perhaps, of something like, what are you noticing? What do you notice? And in the way that I was trained, a really important emphasis on and then giving something back. So again, it cures this narcissistic, human-centric way of just taking. I'm going to take from nature because nature's so good for me. It's going to make me feel better. Sure. But that's, again, kind of still going along with that same attitude of domination. And so, as we want to come out, I believe, as a culture, out of that dominator headset, we want to think, okay, what can I give back? What am I giving back to this being that probably has given you something really wonderful? Most people feel that. Even in a short invitation, they feel something positive. And so to reinstate this idea of reciprocity and respecting the being as not just there for human benefit, definitely there as a human, as an ally to humans. And then we come back as good allies as well with a question like, what do you need? What can I do for you? And, again, there's more to it because we, again, then learn to listen in a particular way. Other than humans are not going to necessarily speak in our language, but we can begin to really understand what is this being communicating to me. As a small example, if a plant, their are drooping, we understand, oh, it needs water probably. And so we test that out, like touch the ground. If it's dry, yeah, it needs water. And we pour water. That's us being in right relationship. And then it's just, again, the intentionality of, I'm doing this because I see that you are an other being, equal in value to me. If we're talking about plants, honestly higher value because without the plants we do die, and without us the plants don't. But it's coming to other than humans with this attitude of kindness and respect.
Do some folks get a little overwhelmed with that practice in some ways because it can seem like there's so much that needs to be done, especially in doing what we can to heal the earth? And maybe maybe we're not doing enough.
It's an interesting point. And I think, I love these kinds of questions because it really helps illuminate the kind of the trauma that we're carrying, even in something like that, feeling like, wow, this is overwhelming and I'm not doing enough. And, we're very hard on ourselves. This practice actually, again, addresses that kind of guilt or shame or all the things that people carry. It's a very simple and playful practice, and there is something to understand. And I think this comes through time and repetition of being with the rest of nature in this way, to understand that the smallest things that we're doing and really changing our mind. I have to say it again, changing our mindset does something so much larger than we give it credit for. That this to me is really a way to make being, good neighbors or good relations with the rest of nature effortless and easy, joyful. I mean, it sounds kind of like Pollyanna, but it really isn't. It's not that at all. It just happens to be that humans do get along really much better when we're in these relationships, and giving, and even if it's just to the plants outside your door, or appreciating, that you're co-creating the atmosphere with the trees. It shifts our own way of being. And I truly, truly believe that that shifts something much bigger than we can possibly imagine.
I really appreciate how your book includes these practical reflections and experiences rather than just simply presenting theories. Why was it important for readers and for you to include this, but for readers to have, to experience these ideas instead of just understanding them intellectually?
Yeah, that was very intentional, because again, this is a practice that's embodied, it's experiential, it's a wisdom practice. It's not, yes, I had someone say to me, "What's so hard about understanding this?" And I'm like, nothing. There's absolutely nothing hard about understanding this. What we're working on is making a shift. And that only comes, with a change in behavior, or, a practice of sorts. And I put these prompts in at the end of each chapter, and also sometimes sprinkled within a chapter, because I could notice for myself I was getting very, like excited about the thought. And I just wanted to be able to break that spell, so that as people were getting kind of caught in their head, that I could bring them back into their body, and very much encourage people to use the book with an other than human study buddy, or a reading partner. So whatever was coming up, even if it was feeling upset about something that I'd written, or feeling a disagreement with something that I wrote, which is absolutely fine, to take that to an other than human and have that conversation. Again, we have to broaden the definition of conversation, but communicate with an other than human being about what was troubling, or about what was scary, or about what was exciting. And so I wanted to be able to have those prompts in the book to encourage people to really like take the book out of doors.
So, what changes have you observed in people who intentionally spend time connecting with nature?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's so personal. And I will definitely answer what I've heard, but I want to re-emphasize that this is, again, it's a very personal process. And what anyone will gain will be unique to them and their current relationship with the rest of nature. So I will say that almost, I haven't ever heard anyone not say, "Wow, I feel so much calmer," or "Wow, I've walked this trail every day and I feel like I've never seen it." And that feels so good. People talk about, "Oh, wow, this reminds me of when I was a child." Again, this is an innate way that we have to be conditioned out of. So there's a lot of, again, joy and pleasure and playfulness that people report. And it really does seem to alleviate anxiety, stress, depression. I'm not saying that it's the only thing. I'm not saying do this instead of other things. I'm saying this is the new foundation, that once we have this foundation corrected, then we can do everything else we know on the solid reality that we are nature connecting with nature.
What role do mental health professionals have in helping people reconnect with the natural world?
Again, this is what's so exciting to me about encouraging and sort of calling in my colleagues, that we are in a unique position because we are trained in mental health. We're trained, many of us trained in family systems or systems theory. which directly addresses, again, relationships and how to foster like pro-social ways of being. Um, but again, I have to say, if a clinician is not cleaning up their own mind, it won't work. Like anything, the clinician has to be in the process of rerouting their own mind in order to really know how to help someone else. Otherwise, it just becomes another tool in the toolbox, and we're using nature as a prop. And that is not the heart of this practice. So I think, again, a calling in of my colleagues that they look at what I'm saying and set aside some long held beliefs that our profession has promoted and reroute and, learn to really do that in order to help the people that we help already in this again, this foundational shift that is so helpful and so needed at this point in history.
What would you like readers and our listeners to take away from the nature embedded mind?
I guess I'd really like listeners and readers to take away the idea of optimism, of hope. Um, I think that these times are very difficult for most people. We are scared, I would say. We don't really know well, we do kind of know where we're headed. And I really hope that readers and listeners would maybe feel curious to take a look at this as an answer, a strong answer to how do we thrive as human beings and honestly survive as human beings in the best way. So I hope that it's curiosity and optimism and community. I would like to say that too. Community. I think this way of being really gets at some of the deepest loneliness that humans can feel. So community, knowing that there are a lot of other people that are feeling this call to reconnect to Earth. I don't think that's a coincidence, but that this is a pathway, and that I'm here to help. I really want to do everything I can, as long as I can, to help make this shift in our culture.
Well, Julie, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Yeah, I think the best place to find me is through my company. It's Elemental. The website is experienceelemental.com. And I offer, with my co-founder, we do several offerings that are related to helping people make this shift. Some of them are in person, some hybrid, some online. So it's for everyone. That would be a way. And also, I'm at a point right now, email me, text me. It's like, follow me on Instagram.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me a space to talk about this.
Well, thank you, Julie. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your Nautilus award-winning book, The Nature Embedded Mind: How the Way We Think Can Heal Our Planet and Ourselves. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.